All right, back from break. I mean, we're back from break for a while now, but dear Chaz and David, just wanted to chime in on the barrel or not tandem surfing conversation. I wholeheartedly agree with your criticism of tandem surfing within the framework of modern progressive context. It indeed is another clumsy practice in increasingly goofy lineups now. However, through the historical lens, the significance of tandem surfing is something that should be recognized and, without sounding like Sam George, maybe even celebrated. The first wave ridden by an Australian on a surfboard in Australia was in tandem with the Duke himself. Here's the description of it from the Northern Beaches Council website. Quote, Isabel Latham was a 15-year-old girl watching one of the Duke's demonstrations. As legend has it, the Duke beckoned Isabel to join him for an attempt at tandem surfing, marking her the first Australian to attempt board riding. The duo were an instant sensation with the large crowd, end quote. Tandem surfing was the medium used to introduce surfboards to Australia. And please correct me if I'm wrong, any Hawaiian listeners, but from what I gather, tandem surfing has been and probably still is a fundamental courting strategy used by Hawaiian beach boys, which I think stems back to the ancient world. I remember reading somewhere about a cultural festival ancient Hawaiians had that consisted of them surfing, dancing, and screwing for a couple of weeks each year. What a utopian celebration of life. I'm pretty sure that tandem surfing would have been involved, given that surfing in its purest essence is a dance of sorts. Sharing a wave with the right person in the right location on any craft is one of the most fun ways to experience wave riding. I'm no tandem surfing aficionado, quite the opposite, in fact. My wife was very unimpressed when I thought it would be fun to pull into a shory tube riding tandem prone on a longboard and subsequently hitting her in the head. But the footage of dudes cruising with their girls on the gentle rollers of Waikiki looks like a hoot, and I can imagine a throwback to the ancient Hawaiian aloha spirit of enjoying the ocean as a community within the natural rule of hierarchy, of course. Keep work, Ian.
Ian, thank you. Well stated completely. I think we did baby with the bathwater on that one because definitely there's those postcards from Waikiki and all that where you don't look at that and think, kooky. Like there's a grace to it. There is, yeah, historically, which we should have defined. And thank you so much for bringing it up. But yes, that definitely as a historical thing, bravo, and or the places where it's practiced historically, like Waikiki, or I can imagine, yeah, I mean, Malibu, you can't anymore, right? Malibu has jumped the shark in many ways, but particularly, or that's one of the ways it has. But the few places that tandem surfing is appropriate and historically significant, by all means.
Well, Thanksgiving morning, friend of the show, Rob Machado, texted you and I as well and razzed us a little bit for that conversation just by pointing out, educating us. Bobby Friedman and Tiari Thomas, he said, used to surf pipe
Oh,
and
yeah.
Big Sunset. And I remember this as well. Like I remember seeing them in the magazines back in the day. Um, and he sent images of them just absolutely charging as a tandem couple. And when I saw that, I was like, you know what? He's kind of right. Could you imagine a more bonding experience
And dropping
than
into big outer sunset.
getting shacked at back door with your
Yeah.
partner and getting blown out? I mean, that is a unbelievable. I mean, that would
Serious.
be a crazy thing to experience with your partner. So
Yep.
kind of can't deny that.
Yep. Undeniable. Sorry. Sometimes we're slightly off. Mostly
Well,
right, slightly off.
what we always are is beholden to our Southern California centric view on everything. And so, us having both entered surfing around the same time in the mid 90s and seeing the version of tandem surfing that existed at our local beaches at that time was the kooky thing, but it is a very slim cross section of tandem surfing as a whole. And we're basing our entire opinion on that experience.
Beautiful.
So, also feedback, and this is going to be directly related to this week's Barrel or Nos selections. This comes from a listener. JJ, who said DLS. Out of the, remember we were talking about turkey for Thanksgiving or ham or
Yes.
whatever.
Yeah.
He said DLS. Out of the three Abrahamic faiths, two of them forbid pork: Judaism and Islam. In Christ, all things are free to eat: ham, bacon, pork ribs, McRibs, Funyuns, etc. I'm thankful for Jesus. Onward, JJ.
Amen, brother. Amen.
So this brought up a thought that I had about, there are food, and even with tandem surfing, there's things that I'm just like not accustomed to, but maybe they are okay to do. Maybe I'm just undereducated, right?
Sure.
And so food is one of those things. So all three of our items today are food related do's or don'ts that I'm going to present to you.
Great.
Barrel or not? Hot sake.
No barrel, David Lee Scales, no barrel. I do believe that hot sake in Japan, and I will say there is a, like everything, right? Not everything, but like most things, there is that real specific time/place. If you are in a Japanese ski resort, for example, and you have just gotten done out on the hill and it was snowing hard and you're sitting down for your nice omakase meal and there's a hot sake there, but have at it, right? But that's a very specific scenario. For the rest of it, no. From what I've heard or what I understand is that the sake that gets heated is the poor quality. None of the good sake is heated, and you shouldn't be drinking poor quality pretty much to begin with.
So that's my understanding as well. I used to work in the wine industry, and so I encountered a couple of, sake tastings over time, and it was always cold.
Yes.
I don't think that there's such a thing as good quality hot sake.
Yeah.
So I just thought it was somehow an Americanized thing where, and it's specifically what you said, which is it masks all the impurities and the imperfections in the wine. So the colder it is, it showcases all of the delicate purity
The
of
notes.
it. Right. So yeah, when you have a crappy version of it, then you go, oh, well, how do we
Heat it up.
how do we mask all of this? Let's just heat it up a little bit and give it to the people who don't know any better. So I thought it was kind of designed for Americans who are idiots. So you're talking about the scenario if you're getting off the ski slope. Does the hot sake even exist in that scenario?
It
Would they
does. It
even?
does.
Okay.
I've done my, oh man, snowboarding, Japan. Any listener who has a little, we'll just say, thinking about what's that trip I want to do, go snowboard Japan. It is absolutely incredibly epic. The entire experience is epic. But yes, from the onsens, they have like the Japanese bathhouses that you do, and then everything's just perfect. And yes, they do hot sake.
Okay. So it does
It's
exist.
it's not like,
America.
it's not like the dominant, but it is available.
Got it. Okay, well, good. This is why I'm asking you, because my only exposure is cold sake. Like that's just, I've never even had access to hot sake. I guess I'd have to order it, but I've never had it around me to where, because I would try it. I'm curious what it would be like.
It's not bad, I'll say. It's kind of
Okay.
it's pleasant in and of itself, but it's definitely, I mean, sake is a beautiful drink too. And sake is not supposed to be consumed always that way. Sake in and of itself is like, man, like a good sake, whew, it's hard to beat.
Specifically with sashimi.
Sure.
Like
The whole experience. Yeah, if you're sitting home drinking sake, I think that's kind of weird. But if you're like
sake with a hamburger.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like sashimi, the most delicate of meats with the most delicate of drinks. It is an unbelievable pairing. Like I almost wouldn't even eat sashimi without sake. And I wouldn't drink sake without, So yeah. But I can't imagine doing it hot, because then it would just boil the fish almost,
it's not so bad, but it depends on the meal, right? If you're having a hot sake and like a Japanese curry, for example.
Okay. So no barrel on hot sake.
I'm going no barrel, but
the small caveat.
The very specific caveat. Yeah.
Got it. Barrel or not? Mayonnaise with French fries.
So complete barrel that it doesn't get bigger barrel. To be, as the older I get, I've realized that it was one of those things that I saw, yucky, Europeans do this.
I
That's so
know.
yucky. As an older man, you realize ketchup is a kid's condiment. Ketchup is for babies. Mayonnaise is for the sophisticated older palate, the palate that's been around, that understands the difference between quality and gimmick. And just like I'm all about ketchup, on certain things, but French fries, I am at the restaurant. They'll bring the ketchup out with the fries, and I will ask every time, do you guys have mayonnaise?
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just
big
squirted on
barrel.
the waiter. I just
Oh
pick it
yeah.
up. How
Yeah.
dare you? No, I mean, I went the exact same evolution as you. I heard about Europeans doing it and I was disgusted.
Yeah. Yucky.
And it took me years. And I think it just commingled on the plate at some point
Yeah.
where it probably wasn't even intentional. But I just got a little bit of mayo on my French
Huh.
fry and I just saw the error of all of my ways.
Yes.
It is an incredible combo. But I will say, ketchup serves a purpose, and the combination of ketchup and mayo
It's
on a
great.
French fry is also amazing.
For sure. And nothing, I'm not knocking ketchup here. It sounded like I was knocking ketchup. I love me some ketchup. I just think for your French fry, the mayonnaise is the superior condiment.
It really is.
Like,
Yeah, if you
especially
could
for,
only pick one,
yeah, it's
that's the
mayonnaise.
one.
It like the
Yeah,
way that it blends with kind of the crispy fat salt and mayonnaise. You
yeah,
don't want it like sweetened down, right? You
no,
want that thing to be subtly complemented, not contrasted.
yeah, totally. Glad we agree on that because I was really going to have to reconsider finding a new host
Yeah, good.
if you were anti mayo. Um, Final barrel or not, fruit in champagne.
Oh, so no barrel. You're already aiming for a headache. You drop a strawberry in there, your headache is going to come on quicker and harder. Like, and I'm talking, so like if you're out at your whatever at a New Year's Eve celebration and there's the strawberry in the champagne, or the what other fruits do you see in champagne?
Raspberries.
No, raspberries in a champagne. Yeah, like again, like the hot sake question, maybe there's a time and a place, but that time and a place would really be in cheap champagne. You shouldn't be
Yes.
drinking cheap champagne. Champagne as, and we've talked about it on the show, champagne as a sparkling wine, as a varietal of wine, is one of the finer out there. And it should not be tainted. It should be enjoyed. And if you're just drinking Corbel or whatever, cheap champagne, and throwing fruit in it, you're like really cruising for a bruising. You are asking for a massive headache.
100% agree with you on this one too. And it is an offense to my senses, even. Like
Yeah,
if I'm at an event and they're doing that just as the default, like, oh, we're having champagne and isn't it cute? Like for some reason they think it's festive.
yeah.
Like,
To
and
put
I'm like,
fruit in champagne, no.
champagne is the most festive thing that exists. It's the most festive drink that exists. And the amount of work and really delicate effort and refinement that goes into perfecting that thing, the winemaker, the entire community of champagne would be so offended to see
Yeah,
you put a piece of fruit in there with
in a
it. Like
perfectly crafted thing already. It is
it's
balanced.
like
It
putting a
is,
bumper sticker on a Lamborghini. You know what I
yeah.
mean? Or whatever. I don't know what. It's terrible. Do
It's
not do it. And like you said, it mainly is, I think it's like with the sake situation in a sense where you have the crappy version of it.
sure.
And so you are trying to add flavor to it. But at that point, freaking drink a beer.
Yeah,
Like you shouldn't be drinking that anyways. It's disgusting.
it's disgusting. It is a disgusting drink when done like that. And my goodness, I mean, we have talked about it, but you've really opened my eyes to, I used to think, oh, with the champagnes, you have your Veuves and you have your, that level, right?
Moet
Your
Chandon,
Moet,
whatever. Yeah.
exactly. Like that's what you got. And then if you're going to go fancy, you have your, what's the Cristal or whatever, right? My goodness, like those are all fine and good. But since we have last spoken about champagne, I've had some like really good small Vintner whatever from Champagne region that like blew my mind how incredible they were. How yeah, like the Vouv and all that, it's all great because you get a consistent product,
Yeah.
but it doesn't blow your doors, right? Like yeah, I had one, I think it was in New York, that was just so incredible tasting that Yeah, I was like, ooh,
Well,
never going back, man.
good. I'm glad to hear that I've influenced you in that way because it is a better life. And I'll give the listeners a quick rundown. What the term that you want to use, I won't recommend a brand because they're all so small that you won't be able to find them anyways. But the term that you need to use when you go into a wine shop is grower producer, quote, grower dash producer. And what that means is exactly what it sounds like. The person who's producing the champagne is also growing the grapes on their property. And that seems obvious and logical that wines are made that way, but it's actually not the case in Champagne. Champagne is a region in France, and it's a very small region in France. In order to be labeled as Champagne, the grapes have to come from this region. And what's happened is those couple of brands, Moet and Veuve, grew so rapidly, their brands, and they produce so much champagne. They don't own all the land in Champagne, but what they do is they buy the grapes from other growers to make their wine. And they want to produce a consistent product as opposed to the weather gives you different things every year. And the grape should be a product of what the weather gives you, and it should have vintage variation, and that becomes something that you enjoy as a wine drinker. You're like, oh, this tastes different than last year because there was more rain or less rain or whatever it is, right? Well, Veuve wants to have the Coca-Cola of products. They want it to be consistent year in and year out. And so when you buy grapes from everybody, you can manufacture a generic style and hit that target more consistently. But those growers who didn't have access to sales and worldwide markets, it was easier for them just to sell their grapes to Veuve rather than making their own wine and trying to sell it. So that's what happened over the course of decades and hundreds of years, actually. So you have these massive producers making these generic style of wines, which are good, but they're charging a premium for them. Or the couple of small holdouts, these couple of small grower producers that are making these handcrafted wines. So Veuve has various levels and Moet has various levels. So they have the entry level White Star for $40. And then at the high end, they have Dom Perignon that they're charging $200 for, or whatever that is. These small grower producers, they're charging $40, and it's the quality of Dom for $200.
Yep.
So that's where you as the consumer can go get a real value. These handcrafted grower producer champagnes. Like I said, just go into your conscientious wine shop that knows what they're doing. Just be like, dude, I want to grow a producer champagne. The entry level one, it'll be 40 or $50. Not cheap, but equivalent to in quality Cristal from Louis Roederer or Dom Perignon from Moet Chandon. So you'll save yourself.
I'll say this show has maybe been the most helpful holiday show we've had yet.